Good? Are we
Yeah,
good? Okay,
yeah.
perfect. So I'm just gonna let's just start from the top because anyways, I'm gonna have to post this on my other pages. So Mayra is the founder of Healthy Rican. And we met at a, business mastermind a couple, well, was it last year? I think it was last year. And now that you are in supermarkets, you are all over the place. You were even at conferences talking about your business. And I wanted to talk today a little bit about through everything that you've done, but also the motivation aspect. Like what drove you? What has taken you to where you are today? So just yeah, give us a little bit of a background and then what you've done to get from like ground zero, what inspired you up till today, please.
Well, I guess the floor is mine.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Um, well, thank you everybody out there watching us, first of all, for joining. And thank you, Lise, for having me here and sharing my stories. I guess what inspired me was my own journey as a Latina. I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I've always known that I've been like I wanted to do a business. I didn't know exactly um how or you know what I mean? Like how or where or how to even get started. And at these masterminds, as you mentioned, joining different groups, um, seeking for business coaching, things like that, I discovered my passion. I discovered what I was really good at. And I discovered that, I wanted to help people and I wanted to, I guess, bring to the world things that I wasn't finding for myself. And within that was like the Puerto Rican seasonings made in a healthier way.
hmm
But
Was I know that Latin food from like as a base, it's really not the healthiest. It's delicious, but it's not always the healthiest. Was that something that you struggled with? Because I know, for example, in El Salvador, we eat pupusas, we eat tamales, we eat carne de res, like a lot of things, and it's fried, and it's, you know, a lot of it's fried. If you were to
right.
eat pupusas on a weekly, on a daily basis, I don't know how, yeah, how that would turn out in your arteries and stuff, but was that something that you, I don't know, why you went into this way?
Yeah, yes and no. So what I found was that, our foods have a bad reputation of being unhealthy. And I think what makes it unhealthy is like the preparation. It's like the extra ingredients that are added. And I think foods being commercialized is what kind of makes them unhealthier. Like I understand the reasoning of making processed foods and it makes it available for people and it's easier and people are on the go. Like I get that, but I found that the healthiest lifestyles are eating whole foods. It's just eating predominantly, more vegetables in our diet, adding more fruits, like more like real grains, eating more meat that is not like super processed and doesn't have a lot of chemicals and all of that. So that's kind of like what I found. And I started realizing that the more we look into how our ancestors used to eat, the healthier we'll be, right? And eating like a balanced lifestyle.
Yeah.
So it kind of yes and no, but yeah, it does have a bad rep of being unhealthy. We do fry a lot and it's, not always the best. But
hmm
I feel like in moderation, right? Like if we can switch up some things and not fry all the time, we should be in a good place.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was kind of like a stepping stone for you to start your business. I mean, was that
Um,
something, or was it another health issue or something?
so it all started with me having different health issues, and just having to like out of necessity to change my lifestyle, and that kind of forced me in this path for sure. As like the more I seeked for like nutrition, um, things like that, like I realized I'm like, I need to make a change. And with that came the seasonings. I found that a lot of the seasonings that we grew up with are just not the best. They're not the healthiest. They don't have like the best ingredients. And we don't need we don't need all the ingredients in these seasonings to make our food delicious. Like, and that's kind of like how I started like my seasoning line was like, what can I mix together that still tastes authentic, that doesn't have all the additional and additives and preservatives and artificial colors that we really don't need.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I developed my line.
From you being able to go from that point saying, okay, I love cuisine, that's what I want to do. And I want to, just like you mentioned, right, be healthy, use ingredients that are good for people. Bringing your, having that vision from like day one up until now, because as I mentioned before, you're in supermarkets now, you're going to conferences, you're representing really a lot of people in this industry now, and you're really taking from your neighborhood to a more national market. Like, what were the things that you struggled with along the way?
I struggle and I still struggle a lot. I feel like it's never going to be perfect. Um, and I think that's the biggest struggle for us entrepreneurs. Like we want everything to be perfect. We want everything that we have in our brain to kind of come to life. Um, and it doesn't always go that way. So we need to learn as entrepreneurs to pivot. We need to learn how to adjust. Like that didn't go exactly how I wanted. How can I pivot? How can I, you know what I mean? And it's like that from the beginning. Like I've always had to deal with different issues and okay, but where do I go from here? So I think letting go of being a perfectionist, which I think a lot of us have in us, it's like the first thing that we need to do, to be able to continue to move forward, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because if not, you're gonna get stuck.
Yeah, well, okay, what happens when you get stuck? What are you? Because I mean, for you to be
Yeah,
that far along the way, I mean, for example, even me, I'm looking at you, I'm like, how did she do that? Because there are days where you're on fire, and there's other days you're like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing? And then other days you're just like, yes, I understand why I'm here, my purpose, and
right. I think it's always going to be like that. Like no matter how much success, and by any means, I am not at a level of super success, as many other businesses out there. But even I've heard from them that it's still the same struggle. It's just at a bigger scale. Like, now they're selling millions. Okay, now they have a million problems.
Mhm.
But I think for me, I need to get out of my head a little bit sometimes, and I just need to take a step back and, you know, go back to the drawing board. Quite honestly, I've built this business off of community, building community. I feel like from the beginning, I've been super honest. I brought people on this journey with me. I've shared every single detail. Well, not every detail, but like good and bad, right? Like delays or like I don't know, there's an ingredient that we don't have on hand or I mean, I don't know. Many things just happen along the way. And I've always been like super transparent. And I think building that community from the start, being super honest and transparent, just bringing people, it's what helps me
Mhm.
personally because now I have a core of people that when I'm not feeling great, I go to them and they boost me right up, right? Like getting encouraging comments or messages, or, when I send out newsletters, getting emails from people saying how much they love the products to never stop because they love them so much. And,
Yeah.
especially like hearing stories of people that have, let's say they had some sort of allergy to some or sensitivity to a food and saying like, man, I switched my seasoning and lo and behold, this whatever I had got better. And I
Mhm.
never knew that it was the seasonings that I was using. Like,
Yeah.
that those kind of stories is what keeps me going for sure.
Mhm. What about the community aspect that was, because I find that everything is online now. Everything. We can
Yeah.
still find, of course, things offline, but it's so much easier to do things compared to before. And when you start a community, I mean, for you, it seems like it's the biggest driver. And it's, it really is true, like being able to find people that you can surround yourself with that help you along your way. You know, I'm having, for example, just a couple thoughts I had today. I'm like, man, I'm not focused. I'm demotivated. And I had some people write me. They're like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" Like, and it's comforting. And you wouldn't
Mm,
expect to find that online, and let alone having a community that's
hmm
continuously like supporting you and surround you. I don't know. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think it's easier than ever to build a business online. Well, because we're online, right? Like, if you think of like if I were would have done this like in the 90s, right? Where I probably would have had to hustle. I probably would have had to be making phone calls to all the grocery stores and all the and figuring out who can I connect to. And I probably would have to hustle to even get into a store. And like how do you build a community, right? Back in the 90s? Like I don't even know because I
Yeah,
mean, I didn't have a business back then, but like I'm just trying to think like, man, like that must have been tough
yeah,
not being able to have this where we can communicate with our customers and our followers and people that adore like the brand.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I
yeah.
find it interesting because at the end of the day, I mean, I've heard so many different times that people don't buy from business or corporations, they buy from people, like people buy from people. So I think there is still an element where you have to be yourself, be genuine, be authentic, really show that you're there to help people. Because if not,
Yeah.
I mean, they
Yeah.
wouldn't they wouldn't be backing you up because there really is that connection, that emotion, whether you're online or not. And that's something that I've learned this past year. I mean, just being online, you can make these interesting conversations and connections with people that spark something in you that you wouldn't have been able to use. And
Yeah.
the old school method, the brick and mortar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm like, I have no idea, but this is a completely different game as well. And we have to, I mean, at least for myself and what you're mentioning right now, we can't lose that element of like that humanness. Um, because the difference between, I think, someone who's just starting out and someone who really is successful is just that they've toned in, like being superhuman and really reaching out and connecting and making that,
Mm-hmm.
that link.
Yeah. No, 100%. Because even like thinking about like old school way, like the old school way, I feel like there used to be commercials, right? And I think you resonating with whatever the commercial and like the people behind putting together the commercial, it needed to resonate with people. And I think definitely tying in, you know, things that build community, things that like help the culture or like help people definitely is a big seller, right? Like it's you want to support a brand that has some sort of mission tied to it.
Yeah,
And a lot of the times, like back, like I said, back then, bigger brands needed to have like foundations and what are you doing for the community? Like now, a lot of people find that supporting small business within itself is already helping the community, right?
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
yeah, so
How does that, like everything that you've been doing, because fitness and nutrition are so closely linked, Um, have you like had any instances, connections there, like partnerships or anything? Because as I mentioned, someone who is wanting to get fit, be healthy, just
mhm.
let's just say be healthy. The first thing you think like, okay, I got to start sweating, but then they're like, wait, I got to start eating well. Have you made, I don't know, have you noticed the link between nutrition and exercise fitness?
That is a great question because I always focus a lot on nutrition portion of things. Um, But yeah, there's definitely something there, like to connect with like the fitness community. I never, gotta be honest, I didn't think of that. I don't know why my first instincts goes into nutrition. But
Mm,
yes, definitely fitness, people that are into fitness are obviously going to be into nutrition and eating healthier and eating balance and all that.
Mm.
So I think there's definitely something there to explore.
Yeah.
I haven't partnered with anybody in the fitness world, more in the nutrition world than anything.
Because for me, like the way I discovered all of this, I mean, doing exercise, I always used to be not fit, but into physical activity. And then now I noticed that the moments where I was not being in physical activity, that's when my life was like all over the place. So it's definitely an outlet for me. And
Mm-hmm.
the moment that I started, because it really is kind of like a spark, almost like an epiphany, I find from my case, is that when I started paying attention to my physical, because my whole mission for me, like my own personal mission is my grandmother lived until she was like 94. And she told me, she's like, I do exercise on a daily basis. And I'm like, what? Like, abuelita, you're like doing exercise every day. She says, yeah, I never miss it, never miss it. I'm thinking she's old school, doing
Yeah.
15 whatever minutes a day. She's 94 years old.
Mm-hmm.
She's killing it. And for me, that was like a huge indicator. And I didn't realize it a couple years later. I'm like, no, that this is so important because
Yeah.
that what I can gain from doing that, it just transfers to other aspects of my life. And
Mm-hmm.
the way I treat fitness now is the way I treat like my mental health, my emotional health, my spiritual health, all of it. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking they're all so interconnected, you know? So
Yeah.
me, nutrition was something that I went into after I went like through
Right.
places.
Oh. You know what? That makes sense because I do feel that I got into fitness first and then nutrition. So I think
Mhm.
you're definitely something, I mean, years and years ago, I was definitely into fit. Not that I'm not into fitness anymore. For me, I feel like I had to pivot because all the health issues. It took me a while to figure out, okay, I can't do these exercises anymore like I used to, right?
Mhm.
I'm not as young anymore, and I also have like these like issues, illnesses, and whatnot. My joints are not handling it anymore. So I had to like relearn. I'm like, shoot, the cardio that I used to do, that's no go anymore for me, for my body. So I had to like kind of learn and pivot. But it definitely started with fitness.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No,
And
I
then I
think
got into nutrition. Yeah.
then you got into nutrition. I think you found like a space that you makes more sense to you, but it always starts there because
That
again, I
makes
just
sense.
went even further with that idea because I mean, I'm not 20 years old
Hmm.
anymore. And there are certain things where you start, I don't have any problems, but you definitely notice you're like, okay,
Oh,
like
yeah.
this is
Oh, yeah.
different. I need
Recovery takes longer.
recovery takes longer. I need to sleep. Don't mess with my sleep because, and there's certain things like that. And
Yeah.
the idea that took me even further for me was if I do this every day, and this is yeah, a whole nother ball game like that. Now it's
Yeah.
consistency and discipline and all that. But if I do this starting now until like my grandmother until like 94,
Yeah.
the benefits that starts to compound. Like
Yeah.
if we're in our 30s now, I'll see you when I'm 40, and then I'll see you when I'm 50, and then I'll see you when I'm 60. That's when you start to say, like, oh,
Yeah.
thank God I built those habits when I was younger,
Oh,
compared
yeah.
to someone else who's like now 60, has no joint movement, s- totally unflexible.
Yeah.
The reverses have to be larger, and you're like, no, I don't want to go through that,
Yeah.
because there's just so much information and stuff. So I
Yeah.
think through the body is one thing, and then you definitely went into nutrition.
Yeah. No, 100%. Because it's definitely harder to teach, you know, like when you're older, like it's just harder to get you out of the habit because you've been doing it for so long. But when you get into it earlier, and I think one thing that our ancestors can teach us is that, we have to go to the gym because we have very sedentary lifestyles nowadays. Where before exercising was part of their daily, like they had to farm, right? Like they had to go out and work, and that was their workout. And I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a documentary called The Blue Zones. It's on Netflix.
The blue zone.
And the Blue Zones is really interesting because they found the healthiest countries in the world, or like not even countries, like let's say there's this one town that's just healthier than everybody else. What is this town doing?
Hmm.
And a big part of it was like a lot of the people, I think I remember it was in Chile. No, not Chile, Costa Rica. There was they visited this one place and literally everybody was active. And they interviewed this guy that was like in his 90s and he was like up and down with his horses and doing all this stuff, and that was his workout, was he was still out and about doing stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah. Anyway, so that kind of shows us a little bit. I'm like, well, you know what? We either need to move more on our daily basis or hit the gym because we were sitting around all day.
well, there's a part here that, for example, the movements that I try to do, because I try to promote 30 minutes of movement a
Yeah.
day. Like, you don't need to go crazy.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because life actually is do a bit each day, and that will compound over time. Like, use that as leverage,
Yeah.
use that to your advantage instead of saying, oh man, I'm gonna do a 3 hour run. Like, no, do a little bit every day, and that's trust me, it'll take you a lot further.
Yeah.
And what I try to do is I try to mimic like the movements that I would do on a regular basis. So, say for
Oh.
example, yeah, you try to mimic real life activities so that
Mm-hmm.
it makes a lot more sense. Because, say for
That
example,
does make sense.
yeah, you go to a gym, for example, and saw all these machines when I first started going. I'm thinking, what is that for? And what is that for? And I started asking people questions. But then I started getting into the thought of, okay, functional movement is things that I do on a regular basis. That makes sense. So why don't I try to mimic those movements,
Yeah.
so that I can apply them in my real life? Oh, I need to get something out of the oven. I need to
Yeah.
go grocery shopping. Like I need to, there's certain activities and movements that you need to do, and that's what we should be really focusing on. And I think
Yeah.
I don't really see a lot of people talking about that.
That makes sense. Yeah, and that documentary that I'm telling you about, you should watch it. I think you're gonna find it interesting.
Hmm.
There was this one place, I don't know, in a lot of Asian cultures they sit on the floor to eat, right? Like they don't have like chairs. And that movement of squatting down to eat, you have
Yeah,
to squat down on the floor and come back up. And they were showing how these people on a regular basis, whether they're gardening or doing whatever, they squat a lot
yeah,
and just on their daily basis. So,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
absolutely.
And having strong legs, I've heard it helps too, right? So, but they're just squatting all day long, doing whatever activities they're doing.
Yeah.
So,
It's a natural resting position. That's why I find it so funny
yeah.
because the chair is like a beautiful invention, but that's where we get, that sedentary, right? We get bad posture and things. And
Hmm.
I remember I did see this documentary where they did these studies on Brazilian indigenous tribes. And I don't know how I stumbled upon it, and it wasn't too long. I think it was just like a small little clip. And the anthropologists, I think, or the physiologists, they were looking at the posture of the people from this tribe, and they were explaining how, the shoulders are back, the neck is fully lengthened, and et cetera, et cetera. They're just explaining how the physiology
Mm.
of being in a natural position, like not being in front of a computer for 8 hours a day, for example, how that
Okay.
right? Not being exposed to that type of lifestyle could really put your body in its natural position. And I thought
Hmm.
that was so interesting because it really has become like a new phenomenon in terms of were people like this 400 years ago, or even
Right.
because on a time scale, like that's not a lot of time actually.
Yeah. No.
So I find that super interesting that when you really look at all of the components in terms of what we eat, what we do, what we exercise, there's a lot that we can dive into. And then
Hmm.
the reason why I like invited you, it's like, wow, I can't believe that you've made this your whole mission because it's so important, especially today. Like,
Yeah. No. Yeah. I I agree. I love how you said that I made that my whole mission, but yes, it like I want to be able to serve people that like eat like us and like flavorful food and, want to add more nutrition. They don't want like all the preservatives and chemicals in their food, right? But I still want it to taste authentic and to taste good and down the line, like my part of my mission is to help people in the kitchen, right? So whether it's a college student, how to make meals in a little rice cooker, I don't know, in your dorm, but
Yeah.
you're still like cooking and you're still eating healthy rather than eating out all the time.
Hmm. Yeah.
Or like busy moms that come rushing home and, they rely on like super quick, easy meals because they just don't have the time. So if I can bring, alternatives to quick and easy,
Yeah.
you throw the seasoning on top of whatever and throw it in a crock pot, I don't know, and boom, you have dinner.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Then yeah, so that's kind of like what, part of the mission, which I already do with my seasonings. I just want to do more of that.
What was things that you learned? Because let's say your mission is, to help people. What you just explained was like spot on, it was beautiful. Help people eat well, but at the same time do it in a way it's like fun, flavorful. But what did you learn through like the masterminds that you're talking about? Like what were the business components, all of that stuff? Because I think there's the side where, because you talk about entrepreneurship, I mean, there's a
Hmm.
side where, oh, you have a mission and you want to make the world a better place, etc., right?
Right,
But
right.
then there's also like the applied, like let's get down dirty, like, maybe you're not making phone calls, but you're making lives, you're making videos, you're posting content, you're making connections, like you're right, e-commerce world, you're going to manufacturers, like talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
the business side, the behind the scenes.
The behind the scenes, I mean, every day looks different and it's gonna look different for everybody. I guess I got lost on the question because you mentioned a lot of stuff.
What, like behind the scenes, like what is it? Because here we're talking about, okay, what's your mission? What is it that we're trying to strive
Yeah, yeah,
for?
yeah. So
Now, like, yeah,
you wanna know the headaches part of the
the
business.
headaches, absolutely. Because everyone
Okay.
is like, okay, yeah, become your own boss and this and that. It's like, well, okay,
It's
what does
not
that actually look
easy.
like?
It's not easy, and I complain to people very close to me all the time. I'm like, this isn't easy. People think this is easy peasy. It's not. You have to plan every single detail out. And when I say every detail is like every detail, right? So, no product comes out of nowhere. Like you need to plan the product. You need to figure out how to produce it. You need to hire graphic designers to create a label and the label, even like that process doesn't happen right like super easy. Like
Mhm.
there's there's creative like discussions, right? Like we're like, oh well, I don't like this when like you kind of have there's a lot of back and forth with people that you work with, right? Like um you have to find like different people to work with, co-packers, people
Yeah.
to make like I recently launched a larger pouch, right? Like who's
Hmm.
gonna make this pouch for me? Like I had to reach out to different vendors, get different prices, quoting quotes. And so
Hmm.
basically like all day long you are emailing people somehow, either making phone calls.
Yeah.
And we haven't even dived into it, talked about Amazon. The Amazon's a whole different world. If you sell on
Hmm.
Amazon, you have to learn the platform.
Hmm.
You have two options with Amazon. You either go through like the platform's kind of teaching, which is like I think it's they call it Amazon University. I don't know, something like
Oh,
that.
yeah, yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
Right. So you either go through that and like learn, and you have to be techie, you have to be patient. Everything is super confusing. They can't make it easy on you.
Hmm.
Um, or you hire somebody to do that for you. Like there's no in between. You either learn like
Yeah,
a whole new set of skills,
yeah.
but then who's going to talk to the co-packers and manufacturers and create new products, and who's going to do your marketing? So if you're like me and you're doing all those things, you have to like end up hiring people to do things for your
Hmm.
business.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
it's almost impossible to do it all yourself.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's super busy. It's super fun at the same time. It's very rewarding. It's just if you go into this world, just know it's gonna be a lot of hard work. There's gonna be headaches, there's gonna be different things that and you have to like prepare yourself for that mentally, and physically in a way.
Yeah.
So give yourself grace, sleep on things, and it's okay to just let things go and like, you know what? Let's
Hmm.
let this slide. Tomorrow's another day. You know what I mean? Because if not, it can be very stressful. And I can see how people can go into like overwhelmed and like either quit or just overwork themselves.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And that's not good either. So I allow myself to have break times. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
allow myself to, and I kind of created like my own schedule. Like I only work from this time to this time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, no matter like I don't know, like I don't care what's on fire. Like we're gonna stop. Like
Hmm.
it's okay. Tomorrow's another day.
For people, because I think those it's boring to talk about, but I think those type of skills are like universal. Because there's something I'm working on right now, and it's through discipline. But
Hmm.
discipline is such a key thing. It's so boring, but it is literally one of the things that has helped me the most in my life. Now I can do anything
Hmm.
because I've established like the right skills, and it all can be packaged in that word discipline,
Yeah.
If I want to learn a new instrument, if I want to speak a new language, if I want to start a business, if I want to meet X, if I want to do a project, you have to have that discipline to, like you said, I gotta plan everything. Nothing gets just created. You
Nothing
have to
just
do it.
happens out of nowhere.
You'd have that vision and that continuous, like, no, I remember why I'm doing this. Let's keep going. It's hard,
Yeah.
it's difficult. Like, I've got a headache. I'm gonna keep going. That's like, you
Yeah.
can take that into anything,
You
right?
you you, you kind of have to. Yeah, and I think just like anything in life, it's a balance too. Like don't overdo it either. Like
Yeah.
be disciplined, but also know when to stop, right?
Hmm.
Because I feel like part of being like if we're talking about health and wellness, part of being healthy, like you said earlier, you have to get your sleep. So, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Don't even think that you're gonna be working until 3 in the morning every day because you're gonna burn out. One time, I can see something went bad and you have to work at 3 in the morning. Okay, you do it once, you
Hmm.
hustle,
Hmm.
but don't do it every day. Don't make it a habit, right? Just
Yeah.
try
Yeah.
to be balanced as much as possible.
Yeah, because I've noticed that that's when I really shine the most. Because when I'm at my best, when I'm able to give the most, it really is the moment where I'm feeling at my best. Like I
Mhm.
remember, I always do kind of like a check-in on myself, like, oh, how am I feeling? Am I thirsty? Am I hungry? You right? And I had a friend who asked me, he's like, why do you always do that? And I'm like, oh, I didn't, is that weird? But I always, and I read in another book, like, if you feel good, like that goodness, it's like it's given to other people just by you
Yeah,
being able to smile, to have like a sense of peace of mind, like that. People feel that. People feel it.
you're
And
right.
and if I can always stay in that space, then it's like, wait, okay, now I have the energy to produce and create what it is. I can have
Hmm.
that energy to make that connection and speak with that person. I have that energy to like focus and work on what it is that I want, right? And I
Yeah,
think that's so key. Like, be disciplined, but
yeah,
know when to stop because
yeah.
you're just hurting yourself in the long term.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. When you're burnt out, you're not, working efficiently. You're burnt out, you're tired, you're cranky, and things don't go well, and when I'm not feeling my best, my sales go down automatically, whether
Mm.
I am marketing or not. It's just really weird. It's like when I'm at my lowest, all right, no sales for you.
Wow.
Isn't that
Mhm.
crazy? And it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with what I'm doing or performing. You know what I mean? It's just more like this is really bizarre. But when I'm feeling great and I'm showing up and I'm doing lives, um, and I'm just having fun and cooking and just showing people what I'm doing, you know, things go well.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, there's always going to be issues, but for the most part, things will flow and things will go well.
Like one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing, it's like it's really so I heard it from someone and I can't remember who said it, and I wish I could like, but they said the reason why I'm trying to give you this information, I think it was even on YouTube, like it's free information. He's like, because I want you to be a beacon for your community. I want you to be that light for your community. Like if we can,
Mm,
if I can give you that and you can share that with somebody else, so they can be like the beacon, the light for their community. Imagine like how that could just expand,
right.
right? Because the other day, my friend, I'm not following the news, and whoa, the info on the news is insane. Like I'm thinking the world's gonna go on fire, but then I see a whole other side where I'm like connecting with people, and so many people are giving and wanting to share and collaborate and learn and give and take, and I think it comes from a
Yeah.
space where if you are just giving your best, like you're just going to attract that same thing. And I really do think that having that idea of like you being a light, I like the reason why I'm saying this is minor because I don't think even for the people who don't buy from you, I like the amount of impression or the amount of impact that you're having on other people, I think
Yeah.
is bigger than you or even I could think.
Oh, 100%. I don't even know my own impact.
And I think
Yeah.
it's great.
Right. Like I don't, I'm sometimes I am surprised. I'm like, when someone comes to me and they're like, "Oh my God," and says something cute, I'm like, "Really?"
Hmm.
So it's definitely, something to think about for sure when we're doing these things, right? There's always someone watching and you're always inspiring somebody. And I think it's a ripple effect, just like I was inspired by other people, mentors, coaches, masterminds. Um, when I'm doing my thing, it's rippling into other people, right? So it's kind
Yeah.
of like, yeah,
Yeah. And that's why I really don't stop. I think that's the idea of discipline because
yeah,
I really don't think, again, just to like tie it back from what we were talking about before, is that whether you're online or not, there's always that connection that can be made and the impact that we can have. It's
yeah,
same as anybody else, like whether you have a multi-million dollar business or not. Like if you
yeah,
can make that impact and connect with people and speak from like a place that's true to you, I think it's just the magnitude of, like have you been in the game for a while? Like you
right.
being able to be where you're at, I think other people looking, you're like, oh man, I wish I was there. And you could easily just say, it's just time. Like I
It's
literally
just time,
never
consistency,
gave up.
persistence, never give up. And it's funny because a lot of people think like I started this business 4 years ago. However, what I tell people, this is long, way long before then. I think I've been preparing myself to be an entrepreneur all my life. It was a
Hmm.
matter of finding my passion and finding who I really am. And I think for a long time, I had shiny object syndrome, which I think a lot of people do. And I relied a lot on what other people thought and their opinions. And, the last thing I did was like really reach into me and my soul and feel like, okay, no, this is what I want to do and the path that I want to take. Took me a long time to get there, but once I did, I'm like, oh, okay.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I tapped into that and it's
Yeah.
not easy to get there, but once you are there, it'll get easier for sure, but you have to kind of go through the other stuff too, right? Like
Yeah.
the failures, the let me try this, let me try that
Yeah.
shiny object, because then you're able to identify it, right? I mean, not everybody has to go through that, but a
Mhm.
lot of us do, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you're the
Yeah.
lucky one that finds it right away, kudos to you.
Right? Yeah. I just think it's so crazy because just like you mentioned, it's you like getting there. And how can I say this? Like what you mentioned before, one day at a time. And I had to
Yeah.
remind myself the other day because it's easy to get overwhelmed. I mean,
Hmm.
you're really ambitious in doing all of these things that you did. Plus, there's life in general, right?
Hmm.
Life is crazy too. Um,
Yeah.
and no, take it one step at a time. And then it's through that very process.
Yeah.
That's like the thing that, so I heard this from Ryan Daniel Moran. He's like, people think, oh, when I finally am rich and I'm finally this and I'll finally be able to do what it is that I want. He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You got it backwards.
Yeah.
Doing the thing that you love. Like
Yeah.
you're already free. Like stay
Right.
there. Now, of course, there's the tangible sides or like, okay, marketing and then messaging and public speaking or whatever. That will
Hmm.
help you get your message out there and really, learn the market, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. But doing what it is that you truly want, and just like you mentioned, you had to go through all those headaches. But once you finally like got that feeling, right? Then you're like, oh man, now I can do anything and I'm learning at the same time, but it's from a different perspective. Now you have like a whole different other view on things.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Um, so well, I need to go feed the dog. Okay.
Is there's so Maida,
Say, say hi to the dog.
her dog has diabetes. I didn't
This I didn't know it could happen, but he has diabetes and he needs to be fed
needs to be fed every
every 12 hours with an insulin shot. So he can't have any treats.
no no
It's
no no.
very sad because we can't give him treats anymore. It has to be very strict
Yeah,
every 12 hours. So we chose for our own sake seven. So seven in the morning
yeah,
and
yeah.
seven at night he gets his food. Say hi, Coco. So
Go hello. And actually we
I
had
know
a
it.
huge
So I gotta go
delay
feed
on
him.
the
He's
second.
already asking. He's
No, no,
been
no. We'll let you go. But any last words, like, and then I'll kind of close it down, and then yeah, we'll let you go.
um any last words? I don't know. I feel like we've said a lot, but if we can sum it up to if you are in this world of entrepreneurship, take it easy on yourself, take it one step at a time, and be very mindful, during the process. Just but be consistent. Be consistent. Just keep going. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Whether it's the way you imagined it or not, it's gonna happen. And believe me, if I were to break down all the different businesses that I've tried before, you're gonna be like, what? So
Wow. That's absolutely. But yeah, just look, final shout out. I'm planning a fitness challenge. Uh,
Oh.
so for those who are interested, 7-day challenge is going to be really great because through the body. And what I've been working on is developing a system where it's so easy to attain emotional and mental health. I think it's super important. I think looking at it from a holistic plus
Hmm.
nutrition and all that stuff. So I'm putting together a 7-day challenge. Date has not been determined yet, so that is in the works for now. Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Maida, for
Yeah. Thank you
stepping
for
up, saying hello, being with us, talking about your journey, your motivation, and then giving us some information on the back end of things.
yeah,
But yeah, want to say thank you for doing this. And if you want more information on the challenge, we'll definitely be leaving that
yeah.
information.
Oh
But
yeah, if you want to find me anywhere, follow Healthy.
absolutely,
We didn't share that. Follow
no,
Healthy
no, no.
Rican. You'll tag me there.
How can we get in touch with you? Are you on Instagram, Facebook?
Hey, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you put Healthy Rican,
There you go.
we'll show up.
Perfect. All right. Go feed your dog. Maida, thank you
All
so
right.
very much. And then yeah, I'll
Thank
leave
you.
all the informations and stuff like that. We'll do some replays and whatnot.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Absolutely. Bye. Oh, hold on. Let me see if I can do this
Uh,
before. And we are done.